Levi Landry
is now joining.
Thank you, Greg. We're just waiting for the guests that are in the lobby to join. Thanks.
This is an audio test of the press conference. Your screen has gone horizontal. Oh, vertical.
Yes. I'm not sure how to fix it. I'll get it your way. Good afternoon, members of the media, members of the public, and to all our Merritt residents, both those who have been able to come home and those who are still evacuated. The flood we've been through is the most devastating natural disaster ever to hit Merritt. We've assembled here today to answer questions relating to the emergency response. Over the weekend of November 13th and 14th, an atmospheric river dumped an unprecedented amount of rain on the Coquihalla region, causing significant flooding and major damage to our city's infrastructure. City infrastructure was compromised to the point that we could no longer provide water or wastewater services. And at 10:05 a.m. on November 15th, I signed the order for a citywide evacuation. Throughout the week that has passed, citizens of Merritt have shown incredible resiliency in overcoming significant challenges. Regardless of where they are, our residents are anxious, frustrated, overwhelmed, and heartbroken. We are grateful for your patience and cooperation as emergency personnel work tirelessly to bring everyone home safely. I know individuals who choose not to evacuate are facing significant challenges accessing essential services. Please understand that the decision to order an evacuation was not made lightly, but it was necessary for reasons I hope will be made clearer today. While I represent and deeply empathize with the reasons why some residents have chosen to stay, I still strongly encourage those individuals who are still in evacuated areas to evacuate, as we cannot safely deliver vital services to those who have stayed. I'm also aware of the issues facing many of our residents who complied with the order to evacuate, including delays in processing emergency support services. We continue to hear your heartbreaking stories about not receiving services. We are actively seeking solutions for those residents still in need of services. I'd like to thank all those hardworking ESS volunteers that are doing their absolute best, knowing they're constrained by a system that needs to be fixed. It is one of several areas that we will try to change before the next disaster occurs in BC. Staff, RCMP, numerous contractors, and volunteers have been working tirelessly around the clock to get residents back to their beloved city as soon as is possible. I can't tell you how proud I am to have staff who refuse to give up on our community. We are honored to have such dedication. I know the City of Merritt is a resilient community, one where citizens will rally together to help one another in times of crisis and need. Our residents are strong, courageous, and kind. There is no doubt in my mind that this community will rebuild together, because together we are stronger. The barriers we will face are significant and complex. To help explain some of those barriers and our plans to address them, I have with me today representatives from our emergency response team and key stakeholders to provide updates and answer your questions. I'll now turn this conference over to our moderator and public information officer, Greg Lois.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the way this is going to work, we have a Chief Administrative Officer and Director of the City of Merritt's Emergency Operations Centre, Sean Smith, who will say a few words. We also have representatives available from Fortis BC, from BC Hydro, from Interior Health, School District 58, and the Nicola Valley Institute of Technology. And I think that was the list. And after any of them who wish to speak have spoken, the press will be able to ask questions. So at this point, I'll ask Mr. Smith from the City of Merritt to speak.
Thank you, Greg, and thank you, Your Worship. We recognize that this has been, for Merrittonians, probably the most difficult 9-day period in the city's history. The mass evacuation of residents has presented challenges and obstacles, stories that have broken our hearts, families being separated. But there have also been some amazing stories of triumph, of amazing disaster response and recovery. I am the director of the city's Emergency Operations Center, and my objective today is to help you understand some of the plans that the city is implementing to to bring you home as soon as we can safely do so. We have on the call as well representatives from Fortis BC, from BC Hydro, from School District 58, from Nicola Valley Institute of Technology, and from Interior Health. And we have a whole lot more organizations behind us as well that are assisting in this response and ultimate recovery process. And these organizations, I can't tell you how much work they are also doing to be able to support us in bringing you home. So I wanted to start a little bit by answering some of the questions as to what's bothering Merrittonians most right now. And one of the biggest things that we're hearing is my home wasn't inundated with floodwaters. In fact, I was nowhere near it. Why is it that nearly 10 days later, I still can't come back to my house? I just don't understand that. First, I want to tell you that we sympathize with you. We are doing everything we can to change that, but I want to explain the reasoning behind it. So when we had this flood come through, we had two different challenges that have really prevented the return of Merrittonians as quickly as all of us would like to see. The first is our wastewater treatment plant was inundated with floodwaters. Many of you have seen images online. It was functionally right in the middle of what was a river. And those teams have been working day and night to clean that facility, to flush sanitary lines, to bring our system online so that we can receive and treat wastewater flows in our community. The second reason why it's taken a long time is because our water system ended up, in some instances, becoming compromised as a result of inundation of floodwaters. We had one moment in particular where one of our wells, in the process of shutting it off as it was being inundated, shorted and turned back on again and started pumping contaminated water through our system. The city is working to address and mitigate those concerns by flushing, by superchlorination, by taking the necessary infrastructure steps that we need to take in order to make sure that our system is clean and that we can deliver a safe drinking water, even if initially we're going to be on boil water notice through Interior Health. The third reason that is difficult to explain is, even though you have infrastructure in your area that wasn't critically affected, our system and the way it's designed, you look at it, it looks like a giant spider web, and there's so much downstream infrastructure that was impacted, particularly from the phase 3 area, such that we need to unclog. It's not just silt, it's not just rocks. In some instances, there were boulders in our main sanitary lines that we are working to get out. We're working to repair those breaks. We're working to make sure that that system is going to be functional to be able to receive your wastewater flows when the time comes. We also have, on the water side, we're making repairs, we're flushing the systems and superchlorinating, as I said, but we have testing processes that are required. And those testing requirements are higher in circumstances where there is suspected inundation with contaminated or potentially contaminated waters. And so the City of Merritt in the phase 1 area was able to move this along quicker because we had a need to do bacteriological testing, and we do that sampling and testing in a whole bunch of different areas, including our source water itself. As we move into the phase 2 area, where there is some potential that there was flood contaminated waters that had entered into our system, we elevate the level of testing such that we're also looking for things like hydrocarbons to be able to make sure that those systems are safe. So we're right now moving through the process of flushing and preparing our systems in the phase 2 area to be able to bring people back. But simultaneously, we're also doing flushing and treatment in areas within phase 3, because we recognize that though we have an idea that the order is going to be phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, that phase 3 is a big area and that there are a lot of people that are going to need to be coming back, and we have a whole lot of people on the ground from areas like City of Kelowna, City of Kamloops, Thompson-Nicola Regional District, We have Central Okanagan Regional District. We have people from West Kelowna, all assisting on the ground and in our Emergency Operations Center, working to make this this process work. In fact, today we had additional representatives coming from Alberta to be able to assist in our Emergency Operations Center in some really particular and key areas. We will be looking to bring you back as soon as we can get those resources online. What I can say is that we are also simultaneously working, and this will happen at the same time that we have the phase 2 area evacuation order rescission that's made. And when that's turned into alert, we will also be implementing a day access only for people within portions of our phase 3 evacuation area. The critical thing to note with this is that there will be some areas that will not be subject to this day access plan. And the reasoning for that is the access or there's too many hazards in that particular area to be able to allow the public to re-enter at this time. But those areas are relatively limited compared to the whole of the phase 3 area. And so we anticipate that we will have a plan coming out here in very short order that will be demonstrating and setting out a system for residents, not just to return to the phase 2 area, but to be allowed day access within the phase 3 area. One of the major reasons and that we need to coordinate well in order to make this happen is that we need to ensure that when people come back, there are sufficient services in place, in addition to what we've talked about so much, which is the sewer and the wastewater. We need to be mindful of interior health resources. And we understand that the hospital will be opening on Monday, but we are making sure that there's additional supports that are going to be in place to be able to support the coming back of residents in our community. We're making sure to connect with the Thompson-Nicola Regional District because there are going to be circumstances where there's major amounts of debris that is going to be removed, and we're making sure that there's provisions for collection and removal of that debris. In some cases where there hasn't been electrical service through BC Hydro as things have been cut off, we can and will need to be making provisions for things like freezers and fridges that at this point we understand that the contents of which are likely to be spoiled. We need to be making provision for psychosocial support services. We know that this is going to be really, really difficult when people come back into our community and they see some of the devastation that's in place, that they see their homes, that they're going to need people to talk to with this, and we're making arrangements for that. We're making arrangements with other organizations to provide cleanup kits and other supports. We are working with volunteer organizations who are going to be supporting the cleanup efforts right alongside you as you re-enter our community. But we also need to be mindful that this is still going to be an active work area throughout major portions of the phase 3 area. And so we have to make sure that there's provisions to keep the public safe, but also to be keeping the emergency personnel that are on the ground trying to bring these systems online safe. And so phase 3 introduces a number of complexities, but these are complexities that we are working through. We are actively involving many other organizations to support us in developing the plan for this. And we're really excited to say that these plans are coming along. We can see the path forward. And though it's very difficult for residents right now to see the same, and I completely understand why, my family has been out. And I was fortunate to have them come home last night. And I can tell you, as families are reunited, it's going to be a special moment for you guys. Just as it was for me. We are working to make those special moments happen for all of you, and we have some of the smartest, most committed people within the city of Merritt and from across our province and from outside our province working to make this happen. I also wanted to talk a little bit about some of the concerns about upcoming weather. We do recognize that there's another atmospheric river event that is going to be hitting our province. Though we are not expected to be getting the full brunt of this event, we recognize that we're going to need to prepare as if this could hit us fully. We want you to know that we are conducting dike assessments throughout our community right now so that we can understand where we might be vulnerable to further inundation, and that we are making plans to shore those areas up as quickly as possible. And we'll be bringing in any resources that are necessary to do that. We recognize that this might, depending on what the weather brings, this might impact the plans for bringing people back. It's why we've been partially hesitant to be setting out dates, because if we bring people back and immediately have an event that is going to cause people to leave again, I can promise you that that is not going to help the situation. It's only going to hurt it further. And so we are factoring all of this information together to make the most prudent possible decisions to keep you safe, to provide essential services. And one thing that I failed to mention earlier that I think is critically important is that where we don't have safe drinking water in the phase 3 area, that it is important to recognize that that comes with no fire flow, and that if there is a fire in that area, that presents major risk for our community and to individuals. And that's a risk that we need to make sure that we've made provision for and worked to mitigate as best as possible before inviting people to return to that area. I want to say that it has been an honor and a pleasure to work with an incredibly committed group of individuals and to work for you. I want to acknowledge that I know that many of you are scared, that you are frustrated, and that this has been the hardest, or one of the hardest periods of your lives. We can and will do everything that it takes to bring you back, to start on this path to recovery, and get back to normal functioning in Merritt, where people are laughing and smiling and having community events, where we have the opportunity to enjoy what it means to be together. We're doing this for you, for our friends, for our family. Thank you.
Thank you. And now Nicole Brown from Fortis BC has a presentation.
Hi, everyone. First of all, I'd like to start off by saying that our thoughts go out to the residents of Merritt who have been displaced by this local flooding. We can't even fathom what you must be going through right now. We want to let people know that safely restoring and maintaining natural gas service to customers is our top priority. Throughout the weekend and on Monday, our crews completed damage assessments to over 500 homes in the areas most heavily affected by this flood. We were not able to restore natural gas service to just over 400 properties. Crews left tags with further instructions on these properties. For people returning home, it's very important to follow the instructions on these tags in order to have your service restored. If your appliance is not working, if it's been compromised in any way, or if you've received a tag from Fortis BC, you will need to have your appliance inspected by a licensed contractor before these can be relit. It's very important not to try to put damaged or potentially compromised natural gas appliances back in service yourself. Again, this is for your safety. We have crews on standby to assist in instances where natural gas must be turned on at the meter. And again, we can only do this after a licensed contractor confirms it's safe. We'd also like to reassure our customers who have been under evacuation orders that they will qualify to receive a bill credit to cover the energy used at their home or business during this time. If you do have concerns with your natural gas system, please do call us. You can also find full information about restoration services and bill credits on our website. Again, at Fortis BC, our thoughts are with those affected by this incident and know that we're here to help.
So at this time, as I say, we have a number of other agencies on the line, specifically BC Hydro, School District 58, NVIT, and Interior Health. Do any of those want to make a brief presentation, or are we moving straight into questions?
Greg, it's Dag Sharman at BC Hydro. I can provide a brief update if that's all right.
Absolutely.
So first off, I'd just like to also express my support for the people of Merritt and BC Hydro's support and sympathy for the difficult time that you are in and what you're going through. And please know that the City of Merritt, local governments in the region that has been hit by this, and First Nations and others have our full support. And our folks have been working tirelessly since the beginning of this, and will continue until we all get through this together. So for the BC Hydro system in Merritt itself is the good news for the BC Hydro system is that it's in good shape. There's no significant damage to the system itself. There were a number of power outages. Initially, they were required in order to ensure that first responders who were dealing with the emergency flood situation could do so safely. And then when we could determine it was safe, working with first responders, we did start to re-energize lines where we could ensure it was safe. And so we've been doing that. And now we have in the City of Merritt itself, 128 BC Hydro customers who do not have power now. And all of those are south of Nicola Road. And those are all properties that have been flooded. And those affected properties have to be deemed to be safe before we can reconnect, because safety is the #1 priority here, of course. So that requires an electrical contractor who is licensed, and you can find an electrical contractor on Technical Safety BC's website. So an electrical contractor who is licensed can advise BC Hydro that the property is safe, and then we are able to repower those properties. So when we get to that stage of this, so that is something that we can do quite quickly once everything is determined to be safe. And I also wanted to point out that folks we have a program at BC Hydro for evacuations, people who are on an evacuation order
Ian
for
Austin,
5 days
the New York
or
Times.
longer,
Is now
are
joining.
eligible to receive a credit to the bill for any energy that was consumed during that evacuation. So again, if you have an evacuation order of 5 days or more, whether it's in this situation or in any other, then BC Hydro will credit your bill automatically for the electricity consumed during that time. So you don't have to contact us for that. That will happen automatically, and that's for residential customers, commercial customers, and irrigation customers as well. So again, just wanted to express our support for the recovery effort here.
Are there any other agencies who would like to speak at this time?
Greg, Steve Mcniven, School District 58 Superintendent. Can I provide a brief update? Good
Absolutely.
afternoon, everyone. Yeah, thank you, Greg. I do also have our operations manager, Daryl Finnegan, here to help support questions, and board chair, Gordon Swan. But first of all, we'd like to thank the City of Merritt and just recognize the outpouring of support certainly the school district has had, both within the City of Merritt, the town of Princeton, which was impacted, Newayatch and Shakin as well, but beyond, our neighboring districts of Kamloops, Salmon Arm and Kelowna have provided excellent support to our families that were evacuated and needing basic needs support after that initial safety component was in place for people. So recognizing that this is such a challenging time for our community and our families, and we know the importance of schools and what they mean to the heart of a community as well. It's certainly going to be our goal to get our schools back up and running as soon as possible, but it is a complex situation right now that certainly parallels with the return plan that the city has put out for our residents. We know that right now 4 of our facilities have been impacted directly by flooding. The 3 schools of Diamondville Elementary School, Merritt Central Elementary School, and Merritt Secondary School. In addition to that, our board office has been impacted by flooding. So we need to do more assessment around the damage and the repairs needed to those buildings before we can determine a timeline on face-to-face instruction for those students. That's approximately 2/3 of our Merritt student population, so it's substantial. With that in mind, though, we do have Merritt Bench and Nicola Camford Elementary School and Collettville that have not been impacted by flooding, and it's our hope to develop a return plan with those three facilities in place. Collettville's a little more complicated, being in phase 3, but we certainly want to be able to get those facilities available for our students as soon as possible. Two of the considerations we have that we want to mention to the community is that we want to be supportive of essential workers, and that may be a component of our plan. We know that the need for those students to be in a facility is important. And then also, how do we provide an equitable approach to that learning for a period of time, depending on the results of our assessments for our facilities. So we're working hard to get something in place and more information out to parents and families, possibly again as soon as Friday. We sent out a briefing yesterday that we'd really like people to review and take a look at. But again, our number one priority is the well-being and mental health of our students right now. We have extra counseling support in place, a mental health clinician in place, and we will make sure that we continue to focus on those components as we get back to those learning opportunities. It's a frustrating time for parents. The 2 years has seen certain disruptions in education that we recognize. So knowing that, we want to get back to that learning as soon as possible. Just going full circle, I want to thank again everybody that's been involved and continues to support our families, and we appreciate that very much. We are being well supported by the Ministry of Education right now, and we have a provincial table in place that will help support and guide this work. So we will be getting more information out to our families on what the learning plan looks like as soon as possible. And the three of us are available for any questions that might be brought forward. So thank you, Greg. Thank you, Sean. Mayor Brown, appreciate the opportunity to be here today.
And do any other agencies need to speak at this time? Lisa Zetzeneder from Interior Health.
Thank you. First, I would like to say that my heart goes out to all of the residents of Merritt, both those who have remained in the community and those who have been sheltering in. My thoughts are with you in the multiple events that you've experienced in the past year. We wanted to let you know that from an interior health perspective, we are looking to open up our emergency room facilities on Monday. That's next Monday, the 29th, so 5 days from now. We are currently right now doing a full review of all services in the facility, ensuring that we have potable water and other stocks brought in, ensuring that our supply chain is robust and that our staff who have been in many cases evacuated and still not back are able to rejoin us, and we have housing for them to be able to provide. We recognize that some of our facilities are up on bench, so the flooring specifically, and clients, our independent living and assisted living clients, have returned back to their home. Our other facilities are in the lower elevations and are not intended to go back until phase 3. So we continue to have our residents of our assisted and long-term care remaining with us in the Caribou and in Kamloops. If there are any questions from a healthcare perspective, there are physicians are practicing, so the local doctors have their clinics up and running in person and virtual. And as well, EHS is available to transport if acute care is needed for a higher level of care. forward to having our service back up so that we can meet residents perspective. And again, my thoughts are with the residents.
And Ken Turan from NVIT.
Thank you, Craig. Very quickly, NVIT is fortunate to be in phase one. Our campuses are open. Our classes are back up and running. I do want to let people know that we do have space. And so we've reached out to the school district. They're going to be using our gymnasium. But we have buildings, office buildings, classrooms, boardrooms, that type of thing. So if anybody needs space, photocopying and that kind of thing, just reach out to me directly and we're happy to accommodate wherever we can help.
Greg, if I could just comment on one more item.
Of course.
And my apologies, just wanted to thank Ken Turan there. We will be hopefully using a component of his facility to bring in more food and clothing that has been supported to us through other school districts. So we'll get that information out. Expecting a fair bit of support coming out of Kamloops to get into NVIT for people to access. We will move that down to a school that I need to mention as well, which is our Community Learning Center, our distance education school, and our KenGuard Learning Center. So we'll be using that facility to provide some support through the community as well. So thanks, Ken, appreciate that.
So at this point, all of the agencies who are on the call have had a chance to introduce themselves and give their presentations. There are a number of journalists who registered for this call and were provided the link to be a part of the conference. At this time, I will ask any journalists who wish to ask a question to please use the raise hand feature, and you will have first questions in. You may ask one question and then one follow-up, and then you'll go to the back of the line behind anyone else who wants to ask further questions. So Jake Courtpat from the Merritt Herald.
Hi guys, thanks for doing this. My question is actually going to be an SD58 related question, so probably for Superintendent Mcniven. Steve, hope you're doing well. This is going to be mostly related to MSS. So I've already heard from one parent that they have a senior that now plans to graduate from a school in the Kelowna system because of the floods, because there's really no timeline yet. I'm not sure how much this is a question you can answer yet, but do you foresee more of an online presence for the remainder of at least this semester of high school? Or do you see using, I know Mr. Turan said they were going to be using NVIT a little bit. Do you see other schools that have not been affected within the SD58 system being used by high school students, or where are you looking there?
Thanks, Jake. There's some good news in that we believe Merritt Secondary School, although hit very hard from the exterior of the school and surrounding grounds, which were damaged substantially by the looks of it, that the interior may not be as bad. We are doing some early assessments as soon as we can get that done with the orders in place. So we'll know that fairly soon, Jake, and be able to make some decisions whether that school is going to be up and running in days, weeks, or months. We are very concerned about our senior students and know that we need to pivot to some online learning quite quickly. The challenge for us is that many staff and students left without technology, so we're attempting to disperse that as we speak. So we've got some complications in front of us, but our senior students are at the top of our mind around any learning loss that might be taking place. I would also say that it's quite likely if we do not have the facility available in a timely fashion, we would likely look at some blended opportunities where we have online remote learning with some face-to-face support as well. So hopefully that helps a bit, Jake, but there's still some unknowns, and we'll get that info out to people as soon as possible.
Great. Thank you, Steve.
And Jake, do you have a follow-up?
I'm good for my SD58 questions.
Would anyone else like to ask a question? Levi Landry.
Hey there, and just to introduce myself, I'm calling in from Info News here in Kamloops. I'm wondering in regards to ESS supports. I know a lot of evacuees went to Kamloops, and I'm sure this is something you're aware of. And one of your councillors actually started his own GoFundMe to support those evacuees who were waiting for those supports to come in because of the backlogs. I'm wondering if the City of Merritt is doing anything to ensure that those supports are moving forward in a timely manner and working with the City of Kamloops.
I'll start this, and if you have follow-up that you would like to add, Mayor Brown, perhaps that's how we can approach it. I can absolutely confirm that the City of Merritt has had many discussions, both with the City of Kamloops. And first, I want to say we are really grateful for the volunteers who are providing service in that community. They have done a lot of work for and on behalf of Merritt residents. We also recognize that the volume of people that we sent to that community was massive, and that the time it's taken longer than anyone has wanted to see, and we would fully acknowledge that there's been challenges there in the receipt and provision of ESS services. We've been in direct contact with EMBC, and I will allow Mayor Brown to speak as to some of the other connections that she has made. But we're aware of it, and we're looking to advocate for Merritt residents, as that's largely what we can do on that front. But then the second point to this is that we know that one of the best things that we can do is try to push our infrastructure forward to the point where we can bring people back to Merritt, which will hopefully ease some of the burdens on other ESS systems and allow them to become spread out a little bit more. But we absolutely have had conversations on that front. I know that the province is incredibly well aware of some of the challenges faced, not just by Merritt residents, but we've heard it from others that are evacuated as well. It's from other communities. I won't speak from them, but we recognize that these are challenges, and that we've escalated it to all of the sources that we can. Mayor Brown, did you want to add?
I do, and I know that the Kamloops ESS was inundated with about 2,500 evacuees in their first day, and then it continued after that, and they were just overwhelmed. And so Minister Farnworth, recognizing that some of these individuals had been a couple of days sleeping in their cars and doing whatever they needed to do to survive, that he told us that it would be, if they had hotel rooms, that he would pay retroactively. And that helped some of the issues. And what I agreed with him that if he could do that, I had a whole lot of other questions, and a whole lot of answers were needed for how we can go forward with ESS for another potential disaster. So we really, he set that aside for once we get away from this immediate need. And we will be looking at hopefully revising a number of things on the ESS in future. In the meantime, we've been trying to do our best in being able to get supports to our individuals through a number of different agencies. It hasn't been perfect, but we have been trying. And Lisa, can you add to that?
Yeah, I can, Mayor Brown. The work at ESS, I think, as you said, 2,500 people in day one, and that's quite an enormous task to stand up. So Interior Health has deployed mental health workers, crisis response health work, because we recognize that people who may be doing really well at home, seniors, when displaced, don't do as well because the routine is bad. So we've sent in a team of nurses to do assessments, ensure that safety plans were in place, that home supports could be deployed even if they're not normally deployed or needed, because again, people are out of their home environment, to try to assist wherever possible to support people from Merritt. And what we saw was an ongoing need for mental health services. The level of stress that people have experienced has been extraordinary. So I want to commend the city for indicating when they were hearing from constituents, when there were challenges, and from the Kamloops CSS reached out to us directly so that we could organize a delegation to be in there daily.
Thank you. And in terms of the GoFundMe page, that is not sanctioned by council. That is an individual councillor who on his own decided to do that. So from a city's perspective, we won't be reviewing, organizing, trying to see who got supports or who didn't. This is entirely an individual councillor's position.
Levi, do you have a follow-up?
Yes, and thank you for your answers. My other question was regarding the Coldwater River. I'm not sure how many projections could be done currently with the rain systems coming in, but I'm wondering if there are any projections for river levels as those storm systems are moving into the province.
I'm happy to answer that as well. So right now, the Province to the River Forecast Center does have some projections. At this point, this far out from the potential event, there's definitely a degree of question that we should be looking at as to the accuracy of those projections. But right now we're looking at an expected volume flow of about 130 cubic meters per second. We don't know exactly what the last event was, given most of the stations were taken out of order throughout the process, but the flows for that were estimated to be somewhere between 300 and 600 cubic meters per second. And so 130 is still a very significant event. We don't want to minimize or trivialize that in any way. And we're going to need to make preparations to ensure that that doesn't cause any form of follow-up flooding. But where we don't know exactly what the weather is going to look like, our preparations really are in our dike assessments and in bringing in any emergency works that are necessary to shore that up to protect that river as best as possible. So we're taking every precaution and we're going to treat this like it's going to be big, though it doesn't look at this time to be nearly so significant as our last atmospheric river event.
Are there any more questions? Jake Corpat again.
Hi guys, so my questions here are going to be for city staff. So we've seen a lot of different feedback from those who stayed behind, those who didn't evacuate, a lot of it on social media, quite a dichotomy between those who stayed and those who left. I'm wondering if a lot of residents have contacted City Hall directly, those who stayed behind, and what some sort of the themes were and the questions that they had, the comments that they had, you know, those people that stayed behind and contacted City Hall directly.
Thanks, Jake. First thing that I want to say is I recognize that for the people who did stay behind, that their intents and their purposes were good. These are people who want to protect their property. They wanted to protect their neighbor's property. They were staying behind with the best of intentions. That being said, there has unequivocally been tension as the City of Merritt can't safely provide or deliver services in that area. And so there has been tension. And I think that one of the biggest things that people have been concerned about is that the city is actively trying to prevent them from receiving those services. While I wouldn't say that our attempts are to actively prevent anyone from receiving services, we recognize that our fundamental obligation is to ensure safety of residents, and we can't safely deliver services to that area. There's no fire protection. We are absolutely not doing anything to support residents continuing to remain in evacuation order areas. But that is it's a tension, and it's one that hurts. Like, it hurts us as city staff to be able to look at this and say, we know these are people, and these are people with good intentions, but we have to ask you to leave, and that we continue to maintain that that's the way that residents can best support in the evacuation order areas, is to leave. Does it mean that we don't feel and understand and aren't sympathetic to the concerns and frustrations that people have had as they want to clean their property? They want to begin to mitigate damage. My goodness, I'll tell you 100 times over that we want all of those things for you the exact same way you do. though we are working really, really hard to try making that happen and do it as safely as possible for everyone in our community.
Jake, do you have a follow-up?
Yes, just one more also for city staff. So I know since the beginning of phase one, there was the water main break, but other than that, has phase one played out as you guys expected? Has it gone as scheduled? I know it's only been just over a day, but.
Yeah, I wish it was just one water main break, Jake.
Oh.
Has it gone as expected? I would say that we expected things not to go perfectly. So yes, it has gone exactly as expected. That hasn't meant that there aren't challenges. There have absolutely been challenges and obstacles that we've had to overcome through this. And man alive, I have been so impressed by the teams on the ground that are addressing these concerns as quickly as possible, that they can again be moving on to other items. So I will say that I think that timing is progressing well. What we also recognize is that initially we were looking at this very much from a city perspective of can we provide water and sewer, but that's not what makes a community on its own. There are so many other agencies and supports that we need to be working to put in place. And so we've been very encouraged by the support that we've been getting from others, including the province, as we've been working to put these broader plans together to really bring our entire community online as opposed to just our water and our wastewater systems. So I would say that, yes, things have proceeded exactly as expected. And in some respects, they've gone better. In some respects, I think that there's been challenges, but we're really pleased with the processes it's been playing out. I think we're right on track with the plan that we've been discussing.
And if I can add, for you talked about provincial help. We've also asked and are told that we will get federal help as well.
Thank you, Mayor Brown.
Victor Kaiser.
Hi there. Thanks for doing this. I'm hoping you can hear me all clear. And I did have questions, of course, about the Coldwater River and planning, but I guess I just heard those were asked as well. So I'll ask about the river and, if there's been any discussions. I know I talked to Greg a few days ago and it was no discussions to maybe look at rerouting the river and things of that nature. But this may be a question for Mayor Brown or maybe for Sean. Have there been any more movement on that front, whether you even look at thinking about moving the river given its location to the lagoons and things of that nature?
Yeah, Victor, that's a really good question, and I'm happy to answer it. So the city has commenced, is actually nearing completion of the process of river rerouting. The primary challenge when we initially identified this is, yes, it's close to the lagoons. There was no overarching concern until we realized how critical the infrastructure for the main transmission line for Fortis BC was, that was running through the newly created riverbed at the end of Pine Street. And so as a result of needing to make sure that we can preserve that critical infrastructure, we were basically notified by BC Hydro that they were going to be in a position where they needed to cut off gas to the entirety of the city unless there's some mechanism that's put in place to be able to mitigate that concern. And so a plan was developed in conjunction with the province and worked directly with the Coldwater Band, and so grateful for the support that they had in that process. We worked with our First Nation communities, and there was a ceremony that took place before that work started, and then emergency works took place in order to be able to reroute that river. I understand that as we came into the morning, about 80% of the water had been diverted, and that process is nearing total completion at this point. I will also add that at this point, these are emergency works, and so this is not something that is designed to be permanent in any measure, and that those conversations are going to be ongoing as we move through this process.
Victor, do you have a follow-up?
I do, yeah. I was wondering, I'm sure it was discussed, way at the start. I was doing the 3 o'clock news, of course, but is there any kind of an update? I saw the thing on the website, of course, just regarding the water and sewer systems And if there is even a ballpark at this point as to how much you're estimating the entire damage to Merritt, its infrastructure, schools, and really everything else at this point, if there even is a ballpark right now.
So let me first talk a little bit about the wastewater infrastructure, because I feel that I should have mentioned this at the outset. So there has been a lot of discussion, and quite honestly, we just wanted to make sure that the record is as clear as possible as to the state of some city infrastructure, and I will allow others to speak to theirs should they choose. But with the wastewater treatment plant, it is currently fully operational from the plant perspective. The only thing that we have that is currently damaged is our rapid infiltration basins, and that's where we would route under the river in order to deliver treated septage into the rapid infiltration basin. So there's been considerable damage to that, and so that's at this point disconnected, and the city's discharge is running into the river. I want to make very clear that the discharge is treated septage. There's been lots of talks that there's raw effluent been going into the river, and that's not the case, and it hasn't been the case since before the time that we invited Merrittonians to come back. On November 22nd, our wastewater treatment plant was operational, and I've got to say that there were some pretty amazing things that happened, and I can't wait to tell the stories when we get further down the line about work that the teams did on the ground on the evening of the flood in order to be able to protect some of this infrastructure, protect in particular some of the electrical systems within that wastewater treatment plant, because if those weren't saved the way they were on the night of, we're not looking at a return home plan the way that we've had this work. So there were some pretty amazing things that came through, and I really want to thank the teams on the ground for the work that they did that initial night, because it's having ripple effects that are very positive for our community now. As far as our sanitary lines and our water lines, there's major damage. There are certain areas where it's going to be full rebuild, and then there are other areas where we are going to be able to make replacements and proceed. But we don't have a perfect idea at this time, Victor, as to the scope of that, because a lot of what we need to do is to be able to charge the system with water so that we can identify where there are breaks in the system. And that process is absolutely ongoing, though we have to make sure that we're not charging that system with water that is potentially contaminated. So this is a mix of testing, filling the system, and going back and forth. And so very impressed with the very large team of engineers that's on the ground right now, assisting with developing plans for how we can do this as safely as possible, and want to give thanks to Interior Health on the water side and Ministry of Environment on the wastewater side, who are working with us very closely to make sure that we're meeting regulatory objectives and that we're doing this as safely as possible.
Are there any more questions? Victor Kaiser again.
I appreciate that answer, Sean. I just was wondering again on that ballpark that I'd asked. I know it's a lot to maybe estimate the damage. If there is just something to say as to how much the damage we're looking at. I know the mayor of Abbotsford said they're looking in the billions. So what's Merritt looking at potentially, if you have that?
I don't have an answer. I can tell you it's not the billions, but we're working at putting that figure together right now. The challenge is that in our community, this is largely something that has affected public infrastructure to a degree, but it's private residents. By and large, we've had a lot of residents whose homes were affected, and so we have bridge infrastructure, road infrastructure, water, wastewater, and we're still quantifying that as best as we can right now. The reason I'm a little bit hesitant to provide an answer directly, Victor, is we have those assessments ongoing, and we will absolutely provide that information when it comes, but where I only have very, very preliminary information right now, we're just not in a spot to be able to answer that question.
Sean, could I adjust as well? We're in a similar situation with the school district. Hi, Victor. We're not able to put a number on it right now. We do have some support out of the Ministry of Education, as well as a project manager who's been hired on to help do those assessments alongside Daryl Finnegan and his team. And then lastly, we're also working with the school protection program as soon as possible to get a handle on what those costs will look like. And I know the Ministry of Education and their capital program has been supportive, so we'll be working with them as we go forward, but no number at this point, Victor.
And Victor, do you have a follow-up?
No, I'm all good. I appreciate that answers as well. I know it was a lot, but I appreciate those comments for now, and I'm sure we'll be in touch in the weeks and months ahead.
Do any other journalists have any questions? Seeing no hands raised, I'd like to thank everyone for attending today, in particular the partner agencies who are working very closely with the City of Merritt as we try to bring all of our systems back online so we can get residents back home. I would like to thank everyone for attending. I know that we've had over 160 concurrent viewers live on YouTube, and I'm sure there will be more watching the recording later. So thank you all for attending today. Goodbye.
Ian Austin, The New York Times.
Is now exiting.